There's big trades and then there's blockbusters, and Odell Beckham going to the Browns was an absolute blockbuster. Personally, I think this is a very fascinating move with a lot of different pieces. I am not one of the people that are saying that the Giants got absolutely fleeced in this trade. I think they got pretty fair value back. I mean, a first round pick, a third round pick, and Jabril Peppers, who I'm actually going to make a video on about how he'll fit in the New York Giants system later, but I think that that's pretty decent value. Granted, that being said, I still love this move from Cleveland's perspective. I think it's really smart. Well, I do think they gave up at least close to fair value for Odell. I think this definitely helps them in terms of the fact that now all of that value is in one player. And not only that, but now a lot of their talent is on one side of the ball, which I think is really important to be successful in the NFL. I mean, how often do we see these teams that everyone's going crazy about because they're complete teams, and yet they aren't able to be successful because they're not great at anything? Instead, they're just good at a lot of things, like take the Chargers last year or even the Colts last year. Both very solid teams and had very solid runs. However, neither were able to get over the hump because largely due to the fact that they didn't have a lot of greatness on one side of the ball, they only had a lot of goodness all around the ball. So I like this move from the Browns, but enough about that. Let's get into how Odell Beckham will fit in this Browns offense. But before I do, I just want to let you guys know that I actually recently started a Patreon. As I'm sure a lot of you guys have noticed, I do a lot of work trying to get these videos out daily. These videos take a lot of time and effort to make, and really my dream is to be able to do this full time, and so I'm working very hard to try to get as many videos out as possible and try to make sure that I maintain a high level of quality content. But doing that, of course, takes a lot of time, and I also have my real job that I have to work, which of course is totally fine because I do enjoy making these videos. However, it really is my dream to be able to make these videos full time, so that way I could really put the time and effort I want to into making these videos as high quality content as possible and still being able to produce them daily. If you don't know how, it's super easy. All you have to do is click the link in the description below. And again, it's totally optional. You don't have to. I'm not going to try to force anyone into donating. But if you feel like you want to, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, I was considering making some extra content for Patreon supporters. However, I'm just not a fan of putting content behind a paywall. I want to make my content that anyone can enjoy. So I won't be doing that. I do want to offer to Patreon supporters something, but I really have no idea what I could offer them. So if you have an idea, just leave it in the comments below, and I'll probably do it if it's a good idea. So just let me know. And again, totally optional. You don't have to do it, but it would be very appreciated if you do. And anyways, let's just get back to the video. I think anyone who's played wide receiver could tell you, I don't care how fast you are, I don't care how tall you are, I don't care how strong you are. If you can't run routes, you can't be successful, and Odell Beckham can absolutely run routes. Like on this play, for example, Beckham's going to be running a dig route, and he's going to go right into the middle of the screen. And what's really important about this play is it's not going to be in any gap in coverage, as it is a cover 3 zone, and really this isn't a great play to run against the cover 3. But as you see right now, Beckham is doing a very good job of making sure that he stays closer to the bottom of the screen than that Falcon who is defending him. Because of that, it's now going to help sell to the Falcon who's in charge of guarding the middle of the screen that Beckham isn't going to be cutting in, and instead it's going to be running an out route to the bottom half of the screen, or maybe even a go route. But at the last second, Beckham does then cut in, and now he's wide open. Beckham is a great route runner, and when you pair that with a quarterback who can hit guys who run great routes, it can be great news for a football team. Like on this play, for example, what's going to be happening is Carolina is going to be running a cover 3 zone, and Perriman is going to be running a pretty standard go route on the bottom half of the screen. If you take a look right now, his defender Jackson is actually doing a very good job of staying back and being prepared for a potential go route. But despite that, the Browns are going to be running play action here, which is going to give Mayfield more time to make a throw, and Perriman does a very good job of running a very good route. He's able to outrun the defender, and Mayfield makes a great throw and able to pick up a big gain. Mayfield clearly can make any throw, and he's already one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the game, even though he's only playing in his second season coming up this next season. But really, maybe my favorite thing about Mayfield is his deep ball. I mean, the guy can throw it very far and very accurate from a long ways away. Like on this play, Cleveland's going to be going up against a cover 4 zone, and take a look at those two routes in particular. Now, if you take a look, there is going to be a route that gets through a gap in coverage right about there, so that is where Mayfield could initially look to throw to. But if you notice, a Panther does a very good job of making sure that he covers up that gap in coverage, and so now where Mayfield was initially going to be looking to throw to isn't quite as open. Also, on a bit of a side note, you might be noticing that if you watch my Baker Mayfield video, I actually talked about this exact play, and the reason I'm showing it again is because I do think it's important to talk about here when I'm talking about the addition of Odell Beckham and how Beckham can run those deep routes. But also on that video, I mentioned how when Mayfield actually runs out of the pocket here, he doesn't even look at the edge rusher behind him. It's all communication, as the offensive line communicated to him that there was pressure, and he didn't even have to look. He just moved ahead in the pocket. I won't get too far into it on this video because I already talked about it on the last video, and that's not really necessary when I'm talking about Odell Beckham, but I wanted to bring it up again because it was a pretty crazy crazy thing that Mayfield did on display. And another crazy thing that Mayfield did on display was, while off balance, throwing the ball 50 yards down the field and resulting in a perfect pass for a touchdown. Another example of his pinpoint accuracy from far away is this play. And as you see, once again, it's going to be a cover 3 zone. And those are the two routes you're going to want to pay attention to. And really the one route in particular you're going to want to pay attention to is that out route, as it is in a gap in coverage, and there's a cut, meaning that it should be a great route for Mayfield to throw to. But one of the problems that the Browns are going to run into here is the Panthers are actually going to be playing very good coverage on this one. As you see, this is about as tight of a window as it gets. I mean, this is basically a mailbox Mayfield has to throw it through. However, he's going to throw it through that mailbox, and they're able to pick up a completion despite having almost no room to make that pass. The reason I'm showing plays like this is because I think it's worth mentioning that when Mayfield has almost no window to throw through, he can still throw through those windows. So when he has a huge window to throw to, because Odell Beckham can create huge windows, he should be able to easily hit those, and this could be very good news for the Browns. The reality is, you have to play almost perfect coverage if you're going to beat Mayfield, and honestly, you have to play almost perfect coverage if you're going to beat Beckham. Like on this play, for example, it's a cover 4 zone, and that's going to be Beckham's route, and this is a terrible route to try to beat a cover 4, because it's a deep route where there's going to be a lot of Jacksonville Jaguars who are back, meaning this route probably shouldn't work out too well. But if you take a look at right now, what one of a Jacksonville Jaguars safety is going to do is actually go too far in than he should have. I think his thought process was that if he goes deep, then the Jacksonville corner who is back can then try to keep up with Beckham. However, if Beckham cuts across the middle of the field, then he could potentially make a play. However, he really just overthought it, and this is now going to put him just a little bit out of position. Not a ton out of position, but a little bit out of position. But that's all Beckham needs. He's able to easily run by him and get wide open. Now, Manning ended up missing the throw, but Beckham can't control that. He can only control how open he gets. And the reality is, Mayfield probably doesn't miss that throw. At least he misses that throw a lot less than a lot of quarterbacks in the league miss that throw. Meaning when Beckham does plays like that for the Browns, it can result in easy touchdowns. Not only is Beckham a great player, but he makes some of the best catches you will ever see. He's definitely not the best wide receiver ever. However, it might be fair to say that he has the most unbelievable ability to make catches that nobody else could make. Like this one, for example. This is actually a pretty standard play design by the Giants. Basically what they're going to do is have Beckham run a go route on the bottom half of the screen, and then send another receiver to have a go route just slightly above him. So first what you're going to see is, despite the fact that a defensive back has about 20 yards on him, Beckham is still able to outrun him and create separation past him. I stopped it at this still because I think this is the most unbelievable part of this play. As you see right here, Beckham is basically getting tackled, but he still finds a way to manage to grab the ball and pick up a huge gain. Now granted, it was pass interference anyways, so it didn't really matter too much. I think it only gained him a couple yards with this catch, but it was just an unbelievable play and an unbelievable show of athleticism by Beckham. As great as guys like Antonio Brown and Julio Jones are, I don't know if they make this catch. I mean, this is a catch that nobody makes, really. Odell Beckham is the only kind of guy who makes these kind of catches. And again, being able to make unbelievable catches like that doesn't necessarily equate to being the best wide receiver ever, of course, because there's so much more factors that go into it other than just being able to make these crazy catches. And that definitely can be a good thing for an offense. You know, the once a year Baker Mayfield actually does miss the throw, that Beckham can then move over and be able to make the catch. But it also should be mentioned that Odell Beckham being able to make one-handed catches isn't the only thing that makes him so great. Like on a play like this, New York's going up against a cover 4 zone, and basically what they're going to do is have Beckham run that route right there, and they're also going to have an out route to the top half of the screen. Also worth mentioning on this play, while it is a cover 4 zone, the Redskins are actually blitzing as they're sending 5 men to rush the passer, meaning there's actually only going to be 2 Redskins guarding the middle of the screen. So basically what this means is that the Redskin in charge of guarding the middle of the screen on the top half of the screen is going to have to try to cover 2 Giants, which he won't be able to do, obviously, and then Eli Manning can simply just throw it to whichever Giant is open. And that Giant is going to be Odell Beckham on this play. So now Beckham has the ball, and what would most receivers do here? Just run straight that way, pick up 4 or 5 yards, and then that would be the end of the play. Congratulations, you got a first down. Good play, Beckham, right? That's what most coaches would tell you to do, actually. However, Beckham has a flair for the dramatics. What he's actually going to do is run down and try to pick up as much yards as he can, and really, he's thinking touchdown on this play. That doesn't quite end up being what happens, but he does pick up an extra 10 yards because of it, and really the only reason this was able to work is because Beckham can accelerate so quickly. That's another thing that makes him so effective. It's not just his speed, but it's the fact that he's fast and he accelerates super quickly, so he gets up to the top speed so quickly, and it makes him just a lethal weapon in that Giants offense. But also, one of the ways I could see Odell really helping Baker Mayfield is the fact that he turns these balls that otherwise would have been incompletions into catches because he is so athletic. I know I made a joke earlier that Mayfield will only miss 1 pass every year, but the reality is he's a young quarterback, so of course you're going to miss passes. Every young quarterback misses passes, and even Baker Mayfield, who is a very accurate quarterback, still misses passes. But here's how adding Beckham could minimize the impact of those missed passes. Like, if you take a look, it's going to be a cover 3 zone, and that's the route that Beckham's going to be running. And this basically is the perfect way to beat a cover 3 zone, as he's going to be cutting right into the gap in coverage right there. And on paper, he should be able to get open. But after the ball is snapped, you're going to want to take a look. It doesn't really work out too perfectly. While he is completely open here, the problem is that a Redskins safety is going to see that he's open and try to crash in as quickly as possible to make a play on Beckham. Also, this throw is going to end up being too high, as Manning's going to actually throw it over Beckham's head. But despite that, Beckham's able to leap up, make a one-handed grab, and hang on to the ball. This can be a huge benefit to a young quarterback who's going to be prone to making some mistakes. On that play, Eli Manning didn't see the safety crashing in, and there's probably going to be plays next year where Mayfield isn't going to see a safety crash in. But if Beckham can reach out and make those catches, that can then help neutralize some young player mistakes that Mayfield will make. So now I've talked about both what makes Beckham so great and what makes Mayfield so great. And a lot of what I talked about is the long ball. Specifically when I talked about Mayfield, that's what I talked about, was how Mayfield can really throw the ball deep. And I've also mentioned how Beckham can be effective in those deep passes. So it seems like a match made in heaven. But there's also one other thing that could work out very well for Cleveland, and that's the fact that they have Todd Monken as their new offensive coordinator, who loves to create deep passes down the field. Like on this play, for example, it's a cover 2 zone, and Mike Evans is going to start off as though that's going to be the route that he's going to be running. And so now Bengals safety is reading this play very well. He's breaking in and making sure that he takes away that route that Mike Evans is getting ready to run. However, there's one problem, and it's that Mike Evans isn't actually running that route. He's then going to cut back and go downfield, where he's able to get way past the safety, he gets wide open, and he's able to make the catch for an easy touchdown. Monken was able to have a lot of success last year with Tampa Bay, largely due to their great receiving core. And now that you're going on to another team with a great receiving core and with much more consistent quarterback play, you could definitely see Cleveland having a lot of success. It's hard to get an exact idea of what Monken will do with this new receiving core and with Beckham. However, I do think the best comparable is to take a look at how he did with Mike Evans. I mean, Mike Evans is clearly a true number 1 receiver, and while I personally would say that Odell Beckham is a better receiver, I do think it's worth mentioning that they are both very good receivers and game-changing players. So take this play for example. Tampa Bay is going up against a cover 3 zone, and they're going to run a play action to the bottom half of the screen, although it's not going to work out too well, largely because Tampa Bay can't run the ball more than 1 yard per carry, so the 49ers aren't going to be too fooled on this play. But anyways, Tampa Bay is then going to have Mike Evans and Cameron Brate break to the outside of the screen. It's a play that relies on a quarterback who can throw out of the pocket, but it also relies on the Tampa Bay receivers being able to get open. Really, the whole point of a play action is to try to get the linebackers out of position, but since the 49ers didn't bite on this play action, typically this play would be a loss. However, Mike Evans is still able to figure out where the gaps in coverage are going to be in his zone, gets into a gap in coverage, and Winston is able to hit him and they're able to pick up some yards. So at first, this play looks like it's talented players taking advantage of a bad play call. And the reality is, yeah, that's kind of it. Mike Evans did still figure out a way to make a bad play call work, and the reality is, Odell Beckham Jr. is also the type of guy who can make bad play calls work. But I do think it is worth mentioning that this isn't a play call that had no basis in reality. I mean, this is definitely something that could have happened on this play. This was a plan B, not a plan A, but it was definitely part of the plan where, hey, if nobody gets open, then receivers try to get open somehow, and Winston try to hit him before you run out of real estate. It's not the ideal situation, but it is something that is a part of the play, and Tampa Bay was able to execute, and I definitely think that Cleveland could also execute plays like this. The last play I wanted to show when I'm talking about Monken is a play like this. As you see, that's where the first down marker is, and take a look at the routes that the Tampa Bay receivers will be running. I mean, this is nothing fancy at all. This is basically just, hey, quarterback, take your pick as to which receiver you want to throw to. You're basically trusting that your players can make plays, and with the talented receiving core that Tampa Bay had last year, they definitely could make plays, and with the talented receiving core that Cleveland has, I can definitely see them also being able to make plays, especially now that they've added Beckham. The fact of the matter is, Odell is just a tremendous player, and he's definitely going to do great things in Cleveland. Just adding one player certainly doesn't make or break a football team, and they do have a rookie head coach, so we'll have to see how things go, but at the very least, the Browns should be a lot of fun to watch next season.